Nate Kennedy.
Okay. Hey y'all. Yeah, I was able to witness at Pig Stamp quite a few times. The Kay was right. That's one of my favorites too. Was hurry, look, a lunatic has gotten a hold of your letterhead. You know, Weeks wanted me to talk at his funeral, and I knew that before he died, and I should have asked him what he wanted me to say. You know, there's so much to say and not near enough time, or you know, maybe the best way to put it is there's probably too much, there's so much not to say. I have 4 minutes, that's what Kay said, that's what Keith said, but I immediately knew why, and she didn't have to tell me. When the judge says, Mr. Weeks, the panel is yours, you have 4 minutes to talk until the panel starts to tune you out. Or as Terry would say, you've got 4 minutes to rub shit all over the other side. Then you get to start the boring part of Poor Guy. Before I go too much further, let me just say to a few of you who came, just for confirmation, yes, Terry really is dead. Terry did go to a few funerals just to get that confirmation about somebody else. Well, when I was thinking about what to say, I thought about telling funny stories and quotes. I thought about acts of kindness that he did that other people didn't know about. I thought about other sides of Weeks that people didn't know. You know, Terry was an agnostic, but he knew the Bible better than anyone. He knew gospel hymns better than anyone. He cried one time when describing a beautiful sermon that he once heard to me. When his mom was in her 80s, she had her own crisis of faith. And his strained relationship with her, he was the only one she could call to talk about her crisis of faith. And that strengthened his relationship with his mother. But why most of us are here is because he was a lawyer. I was real fortunate enough to work with Terry in office with him for his last decade that he practiced. And so some of y'all got to know him when he started out. I got to know him after he had been practicing 40 years and had calmed down quite a bit. You know, Barrett told me when I first met John that Terry was a lot of things, but he was really a lawyer's lawyer. And I know what that means. A lot of you lawyers know what that means, but here's what I think it means to Terry. Terry knew that not everything was important as the next. He knew that if you were trying a $20 million divorce, it didn't matter. You didn't have to argue about $20,000. But if you were trying a $30,000 divorce, you needed to argue like hell about it. He knew that the size of the case always mattered to the client, no matter who the client was. He knew about making that everybody had their own style of lawyering, but no matter what that style was, you didn't need to lie or cheat to get what you needed. He knew that your client's money was your client's money and not yours. He knew that your client's kids was your client's kids and not yours. I don't know how many times I heard him say, hey, this guy's not my brother. I'm trying to work. But most importantly, what Terry taught me and what I think he meant by what Barrett meant by a lawyer's lawyer is Terry taught me that you can do serious things without taking yourself too seriously. We're divorce lawyers who, like it or not, are dealing with people in the worst times of their life. But that didn't mean that he was in the worst time of his life when he was doing it. It was okay for Terry to be cordial to lawyers that were on the other side, sometimes. It was okay to make self-deprecating jokes about yourself. One time Kay came into a jury trial that Terry and I were in, and the judge stopped the trial and thinking Kay might be a witness, and Terry just stood up and said no, that was the woman who had the poor judgment of marrying him. The jurors laughed. it's okay to be yourself in a case. In a depo once, a witness told Terry, "Well, that's a very good question." And Terry responded, "Thank you. That's why I asked it." I'm pretty good at this lawyering thing. Terry would always quote Shakespeare when he could quote Shakespeare. He would quote the Bible when he could quote the Bible, although he wouldn't always credit the Bible. He would always credit Shakespeare. And if you could ever get a chance to lighten the mood, Terry would do it. We were once in a case and that all we did was talk, the whole trial was talk about everybody's drinking. And in Terry's closing argument, he started it with, "Well, Judge, as someone who's forgotten more about whiskey than anybody in this room ever drank." That's my version of Terry. I'll part with a classic Weeks quote that I got to experience in Terry's last days. Not too long before he died, I was over at his house hanging out with him, and Forrest Cook had just died. And I let him know that Forrest died and how he died. And he and Forrest had known each other for a long time and had got to hang out together at Ed Norton's birthday party last fall. And so I told Terry. Terry looked at me and kind of grinned, and he said, "Well, I'm dying better." Now, my favorite Terry Weeks story. Well, I tell you what, John Barrett has my second favorite Terry Weeks story. He was telling it earlier, so go talk to him. It involves him and Sue Shepherd's court, and he'll tell you. But my favorite Terry Weeks story involved me and him and a couple other lawyers and Judge Bill Henry back in Chambers. We were trying a case, and there were some rich people arguing about money. Surprise, surprise. And we're arguing about whether or not they had already divided their property amongst themselves. Skipping over a whole bunch of stuff. The crux of the legal argument was whether or not our client had fiduciary obligations to her husband. And our position was that she didn't, but even if she did, her obligations to her husband ended on the moment that he announced his infidelities. And so Judge Henry called everybody back in Chambers, and we were back there, and he looked at Terry and he said, "Terry, I read all your briefing, and I understand your issues, and I understand that he broke his fidelities and announced that, but I think she still owed him that fiduciary obligation, and I'm not going to go with you." And Terry said, "Oh yeah? Why don't you try that with your wife, Judge?"
Okay, now we're going to sing Rock of Ages.